The BBC is a propaganda outlet. We all know this, and despite the BBC continuously claiming they're impartial, more and more people are waking up and seeing the light. Now, all media is biased in some way. Different newspapers have different political leanings and they don't try and hide it, for example. But the BBC is taxpayer funded and is supposed to have a duty to be as impartial as it can be, as we are essentially paying for its existence. They've been doing a very bad job of this for a long time, however, and it leaves a sour taste in the mouth to say the very least. I want to show you a short piece I saw on the BBC YouTube channel yesterday, which has over 4 million subscribers, by the way. So this can potentially reach a lot of people. It's a classic example of how the mainstream media tries to implant certain feelings into the viewer. Emotions like fear and guilt, especially guilt. It's about the political situation in Germany, or more specifically, as the BBC have named the video, the rise of the right, populism in Germany. Already the title is doing some of the work here. The rise of the right. Ooh, that's supposed to be seen by viewers as an inherently negative thing, because the right has always been caricatured by the mainstream as dangerous, a threat to our liberal status quo, a movement full of skinheads and thugs, when in actuality, in the modern European context, the quote right is mainly made up of normal people who are standing up to globalist policies that have damaged their way of life in big ways. Populism has been turned into a pejorative. If the media don't like something, they'll just throw the populism label on top of it to disparage it. Yet, so-called populism seems to be growing in, well, popularity all across the Western world, so this doesn't really add up. And finally, Germany. Oh God, say no more. Right-wing populism on the rise in Germany. Oh, we're all hearing so many echoes from the past, aren't we? Terrifying. And speaking of spine-tingling 20th century images, let me add some of my own before continuing.
Across Europe, the far right is on the rise, taking on governments, promising to end migration and shake up the EU.
We're barely 15 seconds into this report and already there's so much to say. The opening shot is of a crowd of people marching with tiki torches. Didn't the Nazis carry torches? Oh yeah, they did. Hey, remember Charlottesville? Tiki torches equals bad, alright? Now, I don't know where the shot was taken or who these people are. It's quite hard to see the individuals in the crowd, but that's probably intentional by the BBC here. As far as I can tell though, there are men, women, there's a kid in frame. It's highly unlikely this is a Nazi march, but it doesn't matter. See? Tiki torches, look! That's all you need to focus on. The next and most obvious thing to point out is the music they have used.
Across Europe, the far right is on the rise, taking on governments.
If that isn't trying to paint a certain picture for you, I don't know what is. It sounds so sinister, so threatening. Cut some images of passionate speeches and flag waving on top, and you have a nice little piece of fear-mongering. Although I did laugh at this shot, just a frame filled with really old people sitting politely at some political conference. Ooh, scary stuff. Nazis with false teeth. This shot of the presenter saying the far right is on the rise.
Is on the rise.
The camera is moving quickly, swirling around her. It gives the impression of urgency. Urgent action must be taken. Things are accelerating. We can't relax or feel comfortable. It's quite a nauseating shot. And of course, she is looking down on us, trying to portray a sense of authority. Like she and the BBC at large are in the know here. They're the ones that are really clued up, and we have to listen. Like I said, so much is going on in this little section alone, but we are so used to seeing stuff like this now, it's becoming a bit of a joke, but let's continue anyway, it's really fun to do this.
I don't want to be part of the minority in my own country. they don't welcome you. You are Muslim, you have to be a refugee.
This is clever, cutting clips of a confident white man and a vulnerable Muslim woman with her children right next to each other. Yep, more on these two later though.
But are they fueling hate?
I think their aims are absolutely dangerous.
We're travelling through the continent to find out what's behind their success.
What happens next? Is it riots?
Could they be about to change Europe as we know it?
Nothing but doom and gloom in the rest of this little intro. The rise of right-wing politics is linked with hate, danger. This woman predicts riots. There's simply no positive aspect to the movement at all. Nothing whatsoever. It's all bad. And the line at the end.
Could they be about to change Europe as we know it?
Well, I bloody hope so, love. Because Europe, as we know it right now, is a mess. Plus, it's already been changed tremendously by the powers that be, institutions like the European Union and those who support it. And the people of Europe, you and me, weren't really consulted about these changes, nor were we told how our lives would be affected by them. So yes, major change is on the agenda, and about time too.
Police act as peacekeepers.
One of the biggest things I'd like to highlight with this report is the mannerisms and body language of the presenter herself. Her facial expressions and the way she moves and reacts to certain things give so much away. For example, see the way she's looking at these armed police officers? She stands still right in front of them, takes a good long look at them and their weapons, and her face emits utter bemusement. She wants us to see this and think to ourselves, wow, armed police outside a political conference, there must be some really bad apples speaking in there. It's a clever performance from her, I'll give her that. She's playing her role very well, but it ultimately falls flat. Because if she walked around any European city on any given afternoon, she'd see armed police everywhere. I see them all the time. Go to Paris, go to London, they're not an uncommon sight anymore. So why is she pretending to be taken aback by this? You know, I'd love to ask her why she thinks these officers are needed here. Why do they need to patrol our cities? Why is it that when I go to the Sunderland Air Show every summer, which is nothing more than a family event on the beach in my hometown, do I see men with rifles on the roof of the local supermarket? They never used to be there. When I was a kid, they weren't there. This didn't happen. So I ask this woman, what has changed in our countries over the last 20 or so years that has required us to take this measure? If she can be honest about that, we might get somewhere, and it might go a long way to explaining why the so-called far right is on the rise in Europe. But that's expecting a little too much, isn't it?
Deutschland und Europa sind in den vergangenen 50 Jahren islamischer, ja auch afrikanischer geworden.
Yep, correct.
The AfD are the first far-right party in the German parliament since the Second World War. They won enough votes in the last election to become the main opposition here. They're part of a new wave of far-right populism that's spreading across Europe. It's anti-EU and anti-immigration.
200 Millionen Afrikaner bei allem Respekt, aber wäre Europa dann noch Europa?
The first far-right party in the German parliament since the Second World War. Yes, we get it. World War II was a thing. Nazis existed. Yes, we get it. Hammer the point even more. Look at her face. Such concern in those eyes. She's not a journalist, she's an actress. The quotes from the speaker they've decided to include here. If 200 million Africans migrated to Europe, would Europe still be Europe? These are the questions of our time. These are the things that more and more people are starting to care about. Because the answer is obvious. Europe is Europe because it's the home of Europeans. If the European people are diminished to such an extent, then Europe simply becomes a picture on a map. But this quote by the politician is meant to be viewed as outlandish and crazy. It's not. It's real. It's the truth.
The party's popularity surged after the migration crisis in 2015, when it seized on the German leader Angela Merkel's decision to take in more than 1 million refugees.
Nice shots of women and children there. They probably searched long and hard for those. First of all, most of them weren't refugees. They were people from all over the third world who jumped on the opportunity to waltz straight into Europe and improve their own lives at our expense. Most of them were military-aged men. Not women, not children. It really is incredible how the BBC still thinks these same old lies can still have an effect. But this is just how they try and force guilt upon you. How could you be so heartless to turn away women and children and all of that bollocks?
We're heading to the east, where the party has the most support. Are these your posters that have been graffitied out on the street?
Deutschland verrecke.
What does that mean?
Die Germany. We have here a big left scene, and yeah, they don't like us.
So here we have some examples of leftist vandalism on AfD posters, with one of the slogans reading, "Die Germany." Die Germany. That's some pretty strong rhetoric there. How come the journalist didn't pick up on that? Maybe she could have asked, "So tell me, do you get a lot of intimidation and threats because of your political allegiances?" To which the boy probably would have said, "Yes." Then we could have cut in various clips of Antifa rioting on the streets of Germany, burning cars and the like. I mean, they do it a lot, there's no lack of footage, believe me. Then we could mention the street attack on AfD politician Frank Magnitz earlier this year, just to add some extra spice. I tell you what, for all the mention of hate and riots at the beginning of the video, it seems like a lot of it has been directed at the evil far right, rather than perpetrated by them. But the BBC is impartial, remember.
Your opponents call you racist.
Ich verurteile Leute nicht aufgrund ihrer Herkunft oder aufgrund ihres Migrationshintergrundes, sondern rein aufgrund dessen, wie sie sich verhalten.
But you say there is a problem with Islam that is racist.
Nein. Religionszugehörigkeit ist keine Rasse. Der Islam gehört nicht zu Deutschland.
Yep, criticizing Islam is racist. The presenter says it outright, so it must be true. The lad correctly replies that Islam is a religion, not a race, and, oh god, you know what? It amazes me that we're still stuck here. I feel like we're still in 2014. This whole debate around Islam and Muslims is nothing more than an anti-white battering ram. Yes, you can get white Muslims, that's true, but the vast majority of Muslims are non-white. People have a mental picture of Muslims that adheres to this image. So when white people criticize or even show concern for the prevalence of Islam in our society, what they're really doing is attacking brown people. This is the way it's been framed by the media for years. It has mostly worked as well. It's just so pointless for us to be trapped by this nonsense debate. From now on, as the guy says at the end here, to be fair to him, just say that Islam doesn't belong to Europe, it's an outside belief system. It creates friction within our countries, large numbers of Muslims change big areas of towns and cities to fit their culture, and we don't want it here. It's that simple, just be honest about it. Stop being scared of the R word. You'll get called it no matter what.
These views make many here bristle. Germans are acutely aware of their Nazi past, and some find the parallels deeply troubling.
Yeah, the Germans are all too aware of their Nazi past because they've been constantly beaten over the head with it for 70 fucking years. Guilt and shame, over and over again. Germany as a nation has been treated like garbage over the course of the 20th century as well. But I really don't understand the value of this argument. Is the presenter suggesting that just because Nazis existed once, that regular Germans today can't express any nationalist sentiment or complain about millions of Muslims entering their country? Should they just stay quiet? Keep stum, rather? It's so easy for the media to invoke the Third Reich during any argument. It's laughable.
Franziska left the AfD, concerned it was becoming more extreme.
The most extreme ideology is that there are good persons and bad persons, not because of their behavior, but of their genetic code. And if you are Arabic, then you are worth less. than a good white German.
That ideology exists within the
That
AFD.
ideology dominates the party.
You know, I'm always really skeptical whenever someone gets on TV and claims to be a former member of a political party but has since changed their mind. Especially when it concerns a party such as the AFD. I mean, if you joined that party to begin with, you must have been concerned with the millions of migrants flooding into Germany, right? You will have been aware of all the problems created by this, most notably the sex crimes that are often committed by migrant men against European women, and I believe you would have been worried for the future of your nation as a whole. So to completely turn tail and reject that party because of one thing you don't agree with. And I will say this point the girl makes is not put towards any AFD politician in this piece, so it's completely one-sided and unchallenged. I simply don't buy it. It's like when you see some young person on Sky News say, "Well, I voted for Brexit on the basis of sovereignty, but now I support Remain." It makes no sense whatsoever. People don't just flip-flop between such highly charged political issues on a whim, but it always serves the opposition cause to claim to have a remorseful former right-winger denouncing everything. Once again, we come back to guilt and regret.
Nearby the town of Chemnitz. Last year, protests erupted here after a man was stabbed to death in a fight with 2 asylum seekers. High-profile members of the AFD joined in. Now, a fringe far-right group is expanding its headquarters here, which Gabby is trying to stop.
But these people in this building over there, they want to get rid of all foreigners, as they say. I don't want to get any closer.
So have you noticed Chemnitz becoming more right-wing in the past year or so?
Yes. The mood has changed. It's much more difficult for Muslim people to live here, to be out in the streets. Racism has become much more a thing of normality.
Do you think that the AFD entering parliament has emboldened the more extreme groups like this?
Yes, definitely.
So people shouldn't be angry about needless and senseless murders being committed in their town by people who should never have been allowed to enter their country to begin with. Right, got it. Just accept the crime and the violence in your neighbourhoods because we need to be tolerant, or something.
We're shouted at as we film the house. There is quite a hostile atmosphere, you can sense it. But what's really stark is that this is the area where the migrant community of Chemnitz live. I can't imagine what it must be like to live here in the shadow of a house where people meet and work out how they're going to get you to leave.
The last statement by the presenter there is so ironic. She says she can't imagine living in an area where people are trying to get you to leave. Can we flip that around for a moment? Can you imagine being a native of Chemnitz, for example, and seeing a large influx of foreigners into your city, changing the neighbourhoods beyond recognition? Do the Germans get any sympathy here? Or should they, once again, just deal with it? Can I, as an Englishman, get angry about cities across my country being demographically destroyed by immigration? Am I allowed to oppose white Brits becoming a minority in London, in Birmingham and the like? Can I not seek political solutions to this? Again, so one-sided. Painting one side out to be nothing but poor victims, and another no more than aggressive thugs. Oh, and make sure to film as many brown children as possible, yeah? Shove the cameras in their faces.
I want to know what impact this is all having on Muslims who've grown up in Germany.
What about the impact on a working class German? No? Not interested? Alright then.
Do you feel that Germany has become more racist?
Maybe more openly racist.
Ah yes, implying Germany has always been terrible, but now Germans have suddenly, on a whim, decided to jump out of bed and be more vocal about it. What could have tipped them over the edge, I wonder?
People are more likely to show that they don't welcome you, that they think that this is their country.
Well, it is their country. Sorry to break it to you. These people here are what? Second-generation immigrants probably? So you are, in the grand scheme of things, newcomers to Germany. Ethnically, you have no ties there, no historical roots. Your family history will be from outside of Europe. So I think a native German who can trace their heritage back centuries is fully in their rights to claim Germany as their country. I mean, would I move to Egypt and claim it's my country too? China, perhaps? I don't think so. But Europe isn't allowed to have an ethnic identity, you see. We can't... All this stuff about heritage and genetics and all that stuff, oh, that's a dark path. Don't go down there. Remember the Nazis? Yeah.
You know, you are Muslim, you have to be a refugee.
Well, considering the massive jump in the Muslim population of Germany over the years of the migrant crisis, I don't think it's such a ridiculous thing to assume.
We're taken to their headquarters. I'm Jean, nice to meet you. A house clearly under siege.
More leftist vandalism. No questions will go down that road though, as we discussed earlier. Don't expect any.
Max? Wo ist denn Lukas?
A democracy can only work if it is largely, if it's ethnic democracy.
What do you mean by that?
That the majority of the people in a democracy have to be of the same cultural background. It's just how it is.
This guy's absolutely right. Once a nation has adopted mass immigration, democracy simply cannot work. People vote in blocks, and they vote for their own self-interests. What would benefit their specific group? This is why Islamic political parties are winning seats in national elections across Europe. It's also why morons like David Lammy and Diane Abbott, despite being awful in every conceivable way, are always re-elected by their black constituents. White people simply don't act in this way. They've been conditioned not to over the course of a long time. We see ourselves as individuals rather than a group. And I guess it's easy to take your foot off the gas when you are the majority, but that's not going to last forever. Our own institutions are being used against us, and we need to recognise that, quickly.
Although the AFD denies any official link to generation identity, in some places they appear to work closely together.
We are different organizations, but they're going to the right direction, I would say.
Have you voted for them?
Of course.
The people who have always supported us but were scared are slowly now losing the barrier of fear and are coming to us.
Both Generation Identity and some parts of the AFD are currently being monitored by intelligence services, and I want to ask Alex about his group's links to the New Zealand shootings.
Oh, here we go. This is the juicy smear campaign in full swing. This is going to be fantastic.
What happened in Christchurch is really terrible. It's got nothing to do with generation identity.
But some of the ideas that you promote about migration and about migrants not necessarily belonging, can you not see that they might lead some people to act out violently towards those people?
If a freak takes ideas from every area that he can find, then it's not the idea the problem, it's the freak the problem. And
I guess the point I'm making is that if you encourage a hostility towards a certain group of people, there is a danger that those people may face retaliation from some parts of society.
So, the media loves to play the guilt by association game. If the Christchurch shooter shared any ideas that Generation Identity share, well hey, they must be equally as dangerous as people, right? The shooter also said subscribe to PewDiePie, by the way. Is he going to shoot up a mosque next? But once again, let's flip this argument around and use it against her, shall we? The Sri Lanka attacks. Hundreds of people murdered by Islamists in what was a clear attack on worshipping Christians. Oh, I'm sorry, Easter worshippers. Let me get the terminology right. Lots of those Muslims that have come to Germany read the same scripture as those attackers. They all read the Quran. Are all the Muslims in Germany gonna blow up churches too? Let's talk about that, eh? See how easy this is? But this straw manning will only be used against the right because they want us to shut our mouths and stay at home. They are so threatened by us and what we're starting to do across Europe. This is their only tactic.
The AFD has certainly changed the conversation around migration here, and as it gears up to try and win more seats in the European Parliament, it's joining forces with far-right Eurosceptic parties in other countries.
Wir sind nicht allein mit unseren Zielen und Vorstellungen, ganz im Gegenteil, wir haben viele gute Verbündete.
A new alliance hoping to challenge the political status quo. How would you like Germany to change?
Ja, natürlich hätte ich Deutschland gerne ein bisschen konservativer und dass Deutschland oder die Deutschen vielleicht auch wieder ein bisschen stolz sind auf Deutschland.
Are you proud to be German?
Ja.
What does it mean to you to be German?
Was heißt es, Deutscher zu sein? Ja, das ist schwierig, da müsste ich drüber nachdenken. Das ist,
And the piece ends with a little gotcha moment with the young lad there. I'd like to see the uncut version of that, by the way, but I'm sure he found the words eventually. He'll learn. The link to the full video is down below. The comment section is certainly interesting. Go join in. We should never stop highlighting and calling out mainstream media bias. We're at a critical point in European history, and as the tide turns to our favour, these people will use every trick in the book, big or small, to derail us. But we can take heart here too, because when we see propaganda like this, it's simply a signifier that we are starting to win. They are worried, and they should be. Nationalism is spreading. It makes so much sense to so many Europeans now, and we have to see it through. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so in a couple of ways. The first is via PayPal, link down below. Or you can pick up a copy of the Icoclast magazine issue 4. That's on sale all the time at my website. Enjoy.